Hello, this is Spider Dan of The Secret Balls, and I'm here with Mike of Genuine Chit Chat at Forbidden Worlds 2026, and we're talking Excalibur.
So yes, this is the final film of day one of Forbidden Worlds Film Festival, and it's 1981's Excalibur. And in brief, it's a very long movie.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a historical, almost biopic, but with
kind of,
fictionalized and dramatized in a lot of ways of King Arthur, his reign. And obviously Excalibur is so tied up with King Arthur. I think all I knew about King Arthur was basically I knew bits and pieces from general history, but really it's Monty Python and the Holy Grail, my favorite movies ever, and also The Sword and the Stone, which I haven't watched in so long.
Yes, yeah, I'm surprised we haven't already done that for.
I think it's been on your list. There was that Black Cauldron, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking. I think there was another. I think it was maybe the kid who would be king. I think I was going to put together.
That's a live action one.
Yeah, it is a live action one, but they're both of a similar nature, and it's kind of tie-in. But yeah, what this is basically, I think it's based on a book, and the book basically ties all the different Arthurian legends together. So you've got the Grail, Sword and the Stone, Lady in the Lake, Merlin, Uther Pendragon, all that sort of stuff, Morgana Le Fay, the Morrigan, all that sort of stuff, kind of tying in together. And I think it does it pretty well, to be honest. It managed to fit it all in a fairly succinct. Yeah, it is a bit long, sure, but it's a fantasy film, so we knew that kind of going in.
Yeah, very well made.
But I think it does it fairly well. Yes, I think the second half suffers a little bit. It just drones on a little bit, and it's like, but I like the performances. I think Merlin is an incredible character. And
that's part of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's just funny. This is such an unusual character, and I always wonder how they're going to approach it. But he's such a unique. It's such a unique and engaging, funny, dark, disturbing performance. There's so many layers and colours to it, which I'm like, I kind of forgive a lot of the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of like the standard kind of, he's a knight and he's in love and things are going to happen.
Arthur as himself is very boring.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things. There's a lot of films where they realise this person...
Bland character.
Yeah. This person is a bland character, but it's the people around them that are exciting. Sure. Star Wars. Like Luke Skywalker, empirically, is really boring.
Yeah.
But everyone around him is so interesting. And that's a lot of the time, I think, how you make a good story is, you either have one really engaging protagonist, or they're like Blandy McBlanderson. There's a blank slate going through the world, and all these things that are intertwining around them is the interesting stuff.
Yes.
And I think this film really encapsulates that. I also realised I saw the BBC show Merlin. Anthony Stewart Head in there as well.
Yeah.
And that was all right. I remember it's actually held in high-ish regard.
Yeah.
I think at points it kind of missed the point in certain bits. And I think Merlin himself was kind of bland in that.
Yeah.
And it's like, from all the iterations I've seen, Merlin is the most exciting thing. He's very batshit.
Yeah, he's an enigmatic character.
Yes.
Because you never quite, like, he ages backwards, so he's younger in the future and is moving backwards through time. So there's all these kind of elements.
Very Gandalf-ish.
Yes.
And I think when the director was making this, he originally was trying to make Lord of the Rings, but then he couldn't quite get the rights. So he was like, well, I'll make something that's tangentially similar.
Yeah.
And
but also kind of, he probably got the rights to that book, but even then, fables and legends they're not copyright, are they? So they can play around with that.
Well, that's it. And I think with when you know what Gandalf is like, obviously there's different interpretations of Gandalf, but he is very much like, he is a kind of a god, kind of not.
Yeah.
He is to be involved in certain things, but he can't be too involved, and that is what Merlin is in this.
And Merlin, like for me, I think from being into comic books, I've tangentially gotten more into like Arthurian lore. There's quite a famous like Iron Man story where Doctor Doom and him travel back to Arthurian time.
Oh, cool.
And he teams up with Morgana, and Iron Man teams up with King Arthur, and they have a fight, but then they have to team up to get back to modern day. And there's kind of a trilogy about that, and then he ends up wielding Excalibur, and the scabbard turns into like mystical armour. There's a really amazing DC miniseries called Camelot 3000, where, because the one of the things is that Arthur will return. So spoilers for the end of the film, but he goes off to Avalon, and the idea is that he's going to rest there, and then one day he shall return
okay.
and wield Excalibur again. And in Camelot 3000, everybody comes back, but in a slightly different form. And there's one of the knights comes back as a trans woman as well, which this was made in like the early 80s, so it's quite very progressive for its time. And it's like a 12-issue maxi series. Highly recommend it. Brian Bolland does the art as well. I think me and Tony said we might cover it at some point on a podcast.
That would be cool.
It's a really interesting book. But yeah, and like Etrigan the Demon and some of the characters are kind of tangentially linked to Arthurian lore and legend. And I think that's kind of how I kind of like love it, because it's kind of, and I think that, you know, that there's a lot of Arthurian lore in Star Wars as well, along with Akira Kurosawa. It's kind of a mix of all that stuff. But I think this, like, visually, I think this is a stunning film. I think the cinematography, whatever you think of the story and the characters, sure, but it looked absolutely gorgeous. You've never seen a shinier suit of armor in your life, or a shinier sword in your life, than in this film.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where it's like everything in camera is done so well, and I think for me what it felt like is the first, because the film's 2 hours 20, the first hour to an hour and a half, proper solid, and by the end of the hour and a half, and we will be doing spoilers, but like. But by the end of the hour and a half, I was like, okay, it feels like it's wrapping up. I'm really into this. If this finishes now, I would buy it on DVD and rewatch it. But then it just kind of teeters off because most of the characters die. Merlin dies or whatever.
Yeah, trapped.
Yeah, and then it just, there's this whole, almost an entire another film. Because obviously it's meant to be Arthur's whole kind of life, and I understand that. But there's the Holy Grail stuff is like 20-something minutes. There's the Morgana stuff. There's the like incest son of Arthur and Morgana. There's like all these things, and it's like the Arthurian story and him and the Knights of the Round Table and Sir Lancelot and all that kind of stuff is really cool. I think Grail's way it loses me.
Yeah.
Once you lose Merlin, who's really. The film takes itself way too seriously after Merlin's gone, because when Merlin's there, he brings some levity.
Humor, the amount of humor that comes, and
I didn't know this was like a comedy.
The way it's delivered and the over the top theatrical nature of it, and there's so much kind of it's very Shakespearean. But also it feels almost like we're doing, you know, Passion of the Christ almost. We're going, okay, or The Last Temptation in Christ, which is his entire life, and then we're playing around with some elements. And it's like, we have to have this. We must fit this in.
So the greatest hits.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I feel like that's its problem, but also that's maybe some of its strengths as well, is that they managed to, you know, despite its kind of, its lack of quality towards the end. Again, I thought, I completely forgot about the Grail subplot. Because I haven't seen it in years, but I remember really liking it, and I was like, completely forgot about that. I thought we just went straight into like Mordred and Morgana, and I thought Morgana, you know, it was a much more of a kind of an active and like villainous character. And usually she's been, you know, Marvel's got a version of her, DC's got a version of her. There's loads of different versions of her, played by loads of different actresses as well.
To my understanding, she starts off good and basically so corrupted by dark magic.
Yeah, basically, So she ends up being, like she says in the film, she's like, I'm like you. Basically, she's kind of like they're both kind of like demons effectively, and they're talking about the dragon and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, like there's some really kind of interesting lore and stories and stuff that you could read into. But yeah, it does. It didn't. I thought that was like. I thought we do the sword, the Tristan Isolde thing with the two lovers, and there's a sword in between them. I thought we went from that, and then Arthur starts, you know, going like, I'm not the king anymore. I'm without the sword. You know, the land starts, because they're connected, so the land gets worse. I thought we go right. Then Morgana does some incesty stuff with a brother. Has the son, and then we kind of skip forth into that storyline where he's killing off all the knights. And then he comes back, but I forgot that he needs to get the Grail to come back. So, it feels like I just think I would have either cut that or truncated that in some way.
I feel like this film either needs to be half an hour longer or half an hour shorter.
Yes, I agree.
There's quite a few films like that. I was talking off air about like Frank Herbert's Dune. When you watch the Dune from 1984, is it David Lynch?
Yes, yeah.
Like the first half of that, maybe 2/3 of the movie, is amazing. It's like, I would say it's in certain ways almost as good as the Villeneuve Part 1. But then it gets to a point, it's like, right, we need to rush through all of this, and we don't have time to explain it. And that's where the film loses you. And I feel like with this, it felt a little bit like that, because you've got the character Percival, who becomes kind of like the main character for the last like 40 minutes, but his character's not cooked.
No.
Like, Lancelot, you get him, he makes sense. Arthur, you get him, he makes sense. And they're kind of the two main-ish characters for most of it, and Merlin, of course. But outside of them, most of the other characters are not given that much time.
No.
And so when you spend a lot of time with
some good, like, proper cast members in this. You got like
Helen Mirren,
Syrian Hines did the video introduction for it as well. Charlie Boorman, who did the Long Way Round with Ewan McGregor, who is the son of the director who plays young Mordred in this. You know, he gave a little talk just before, showed us like some of his armour,
that's the helmet thing,
which was cool. But yeah, like Liam Neeson, Patrick Stewart, you know, Helen Mirren, like it's a cornucopia, and they're all in like tiny roles, and some of them are not the best acted. You know,
it's probably the only time I've seen Liam Neeson be like not great.
Yeah, he's like, I'm drunk. Oh, I challenge you to a duel. It's like, oh, okay, good, Liam. Good, you know, carry on.
Good first effort.
Good. Yeah, like it's your first film, no problem. But yeah. And then I think they dated. I think Helen Mirren and Liam Neeson dated not long after that.
Yeah, I think so. They lived together for a few years after that.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is fair.
Which I can't blame him.
No, Helen Mirren, even now, like she's still a very attractive woman. She's aged gracefully, but obviously incredible actress as well. But I think that this movie is so massive in scale, it's so ambitious, and it lands in so many ways. It is just kind of that ending. It feels, I don't know if they ran out of money a little bit, or if they were just kind of rushing to finish, which probably was, according to what Charles Booney said about his dad. He was like, they got to like the halfway point, and he basically had to stretch the budget. And once they got over the halfway point, the studio couldn't then pull the plug. It was going to be more. It would cost more money to pull the plug than just get it finished. But I think you know, some of the big scenes, even the big ending scene when there's mist and stuff, cleverly done because you can hide the scale.
Absolutely.
I imagine that end bit was done, and the main fight scenes and stuff was done, and probably a lot of the stuff in the castle with Knights of the Round Table. And then I imagine it's kind of the in-betweeny bits, especially the Holy Grail stuff. Those were the bits which were kind of probably done near the end. And I just didn't. It felt like to me, it felt like a 3-act structure. But then at Act 3, it goes, no, actually, there's another 2 acts, and you're like, it just felt really disjointed.
Yeah, it's kind of more like 4 acts, really.
It feels very much. The problem I found with it, because I've never seen the film, I knew it was long, but I don't look at my phone. I don't look at the time when I'm in the. When I'm watching a film for the first time, I do not look at the time unless I have to for a reason. If I'm at home or something, I need to check on melody or something. But like. Because I find that if you know there's 40 minutes left of a movie, you're then
going to feel it.
Yeah, and also in your mind you go, well, whatever is wrapping up here, that's not the conclusion of the story. But when I don't look at the time, especially when I'm in the cinema, I'm like, okay, I could just be along with the ride, let the movie take me and be immersed. And it really felt like, we were talking about it like with Lord of the Rings and things like that, where you go, I'll be eased into the thing, everything's all finishing up, I'm done. I can relax, film's over. Oh, no, there's more. Okay. But it did that, except the no, there's more was like a huge period of time.
Yeah, it was a huge chunk, like 10, 20-minute section.
And I'd say, like, because of you have that bit, and also the most interesting character, Merlin, isn't in it anymore.
Yeah,
and
you lose.
There's certain scenes where exposition is a bit boring, but like, Merlin comes in and he makes those boring exposition scenes interesting with humour and being different and weird.
And I think they could have. I mean, they kind of did have it towards the end where you're still kind of in communication. It's like,
that's not one scene,
you know. But they could have done more of that.
100%.
I think they could have done more of that, and that would have been fine. But like it kind of loses something once Merlin goes out of the plot. I get why he can't be in it, because it has to be Arthur. He can't be supported by an all-powerful demon wizard lord. You know, it has to be him. And they talk about it being the age of men. It's the age of men. You know, it's Arthur's time. We're dying. You know, all this sort of stuff, which is in Dragon Slayer and a lot of fantasy films where Christianity, like Lady Hawk's got it as well. You know, there's an element of that Christianity coming in, the old ways dying off. So I get structurally and narratively why that needs to happen, but unfortunately, once Merlin is out, and again, I thought Helen Mirren's part was so much more beefier than it was.
Yeah, she does kind of take a back step for quite a while.
Because she becomes like the lead villain and then gives birth to Mordred, who is also a lead villain in a sense. And I'd say they're underdeveloped and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily hurt the film.
No.
But I think you need to fill it with something else, because Arthur's just like, bleh. And then Percival is only introduced very late in the film anyway, and then he becomes the lead character for the Grail quest.
And so much of it's just him riding a horse.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm depressed. Places. I'm depressed. You can't give up. You must have faith, and blah blah blah. You're my lord, and all this. And it's like, what is the purpose of the Grail? And I think if Percival was introduced a bit earlier on,
yes,
then that might have been better. And there's something. I mean, again, I think they do well to juggle all these elements and make them work even in a small way,
especially in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. I think it rolls along. It's good. It's got good pace to it. It's got good characters, good acting. Yeah, again, very very limited kind of character stuff. But I think we've got to talk about Terry English's armor. I think is incredible.
Yeah.
Shiny, made of aluminium. So
the sounds of it when it's moving is awesome.
Clang, you've got the little flappy bit, which is for the jousting.
Yeah,
I was like, that really like that whole idea irritates me. And then I was like, what is that there for? And I was like, oh, it's the jousting, protect me with the jousting. He even makes a small cameo as an armourer.
Yes, yeah.
Because I heard someone go, that's Terry English.
because Terry was meant to be a Forbidden World.
Yeah, unfortunately,
he's in a family bereavement, so which obviously completely understandable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I did quite a lot of research into it, so it was really interesting seeing all the stuff he did and how much he holds this film in such high regard. Yeah. He did like 106 pieces of armour for this film, and he's done loads of other
still doing it to this day.
He's like 80.
He did the recent Dracula, as they were saying. He's done Robin Hood, Gladiator,
Transformers, the last night. He did
Aliens.
Yeah, he did the Colonial Marines, guards, stuff, and hand painted the wall, stuff like that. He did the new Clash of the Titans as well.
Correct.
He did. There's a few bits of armour in the background of Harry Potter shots. Of the movies.
I think they picked of all the Terry English films to pick to show and to showcase his work.
Yeah,
this is the one because it's all they are never not in a suit of armour at some point.
A world of wizards, kings, warriors, queens, swords, sorcery, and desire. Forged of splendor and magic, where future meets past, flesh meets steel, and the only fear is the pain of love. Excalibur, sword of power, sword of kings.
And like the different armor types and things, like right at the start when you've got like Uther Pendragon, like his armor and the helmet and stuff and all of his knights looks different to the guy who's like defending the castle and things. Like when you see the difference, you can see visually.
I think he's the Duke of Cornwall, I think.
Yeah, so when you see that, and even when you get like the Knights of the Round Table, they look towards the sort of near the end of the film, they've got very shiny armor.
Yes.
They all have like Canate's armor. And it's like, even with Percival, near the end when he's been like traveling for years and years, his armor gets dirty and stuff. And it's like, the armor really tells a story in this.
Yes.
And I think that this is one of those things where... with being a millennial stuff, obviously I've grown up a lot with CGI and things like that. And obviously we love the Marvel movies for the most part. But there is something that does get lost when you see them behind the scenes and it's like that grey suit thing and you can just do the Iron Man like nanotech thing. And it's like, boom, everything's different. Boom, everything's different. And I'm like, I like the actual like original Spider-Man.
Clunky aspects.
I like seeing real armor, real costumes and real outfits and stuff. And also, one thing that you and I always discuss, but either in Forbidden World or in the other pods, is when you have something in camera, it happened with the original trilogy, Star Wars, and lots of films, I think, from the late 70s to the early 90s, that kind of almost golden age in a way, where if you get special effects that look great at the time and look convincing, that's timeless.
Yeah.
Lady Hawk, I think, is timeless.
Yeah.
Young Sherlock Holmes, for the most part, I think is timeless. Because when you see these kinds of films, when you have something in camera that looks realistic and doesn't pull you out of the film, boom. Yeah. When you have Lucas in the prequels or adding stuff in the original trilogy of like CGI that was good during the late 90s, that's not going to look as good one day. You know, it's the big example is The Mummy Returns. When you've got The Rock looking like a PlayStation 1 thing. It's like, obviously making that prosthetics physically would have been very difficult, but it pulls you out of the movie. But there's although this film, in my opinion, did drag a bit, and the last, especially half hour, 40 minutes, is a bit of a drag, there's no point where I didn't feel immersed. I was just like, I don't know. I stopped caring about Arthur as much. When all the interesting characters die, I'm like, I've lost interest in how this ends, even though I kind of know. But I was never not immersed in the movie. And the cinematography,
I think the world building's incredible. You're like, it really gets you. And like you said, like the Dark Ages armor is very different from the Camelot armor, which has this almost has a gold tint to it as well. There's a gold, but you know, and then Lancelot, who is said to be from across the sea, like from Europe or somewhere like that, his armor is very different, and much more kind of ornate and displayed, and you know, it's got like the kind of Thor helmet-esque-ness to it. It's got the wings on the side, which again I thought, like, what an interesting way to visually depict how how he feels like an outsider or how different he is from everybody else, even though they love him and he's the best knight.
But that also shows like reflected, like he's like shiny and glowing, like so he's meant to be the best of us.
Yes,
and that is part of it. And all the knights of the Round Table and stuff, they do go, he's the best of us. Why is he not here with us? And obviously, it's because he's in love with Arthur's wife. And then when Guinevere, and then when that all happens, it's like when Lancelot falls, that's where the hole in the circle happens, and things start to collapse in on itself.
Yeah, exactly. He gives up the sword, so he can't be king because he doesn't have the sword.
Yeah, Arthur gives up the sword after seeing that.
And then he starts kind of like, because he has a living death, and then because his spirit and soul is connected to the land, therefore the land starts to be, because he's going like the worst thing you should ever say as a character, like everything's going really well. Yeah, everything is great. Everyone, the crops are bountiful. Everyone, this is true justice. Where is the real evil in the world? Tell me, Merlin, when where you don't expect it, when you least expect the evil to be, and then immediately after, everything starts going wrong. Yeah, and like Gawain the Green Knight, who is Liam Neeson, accuses Guinevere of having an affair with Lancelot, and then it kind of all unravels. Camelot falls, like all these big empires do. But yeah, I like it. I really enjoy the film. I think it's visually stunning. It's epic. I think you don't get films like it anymore, unfortunately. I agree. And like the first Iron Man suit, they built that. I thought that was incredible. I like that. I like that tactile nature of it. And yeah, you are correct. We don't get this, and it's not the same. And like, I don't think we would shoot a film like this anymore, like the sheen and shine and I mean, there is a bit of J.J. Abrams here with kind of almost lens flares going on with the shininess of everything, the reflected nature.
I think also with so many battle scenes nowadays is that you generally, not only cost but also injury wise, historically there's so many movies. I don't know about this movie, but
it's very rough and ready. There's a lot of like tumbling, knocking people over,
and people like being like hit off horses from heights.
Proper.
Yeah, and I haven't looked into this, but you find a lot of these kind of films where horses get injured or cast and crew member get hurt. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be
the abyss.
People shouldn't be hurt in art. That shouldn't have to be a thing. But I think when you make a film like this, where you have to have horses and stuff like that, it's really difficult to make a film where no one's going to get injured. And if someone's willing to get a little bit banged up in a battle scene, that is different to in the abyss, borderline being trapped.
And also in fight scenes, you do have to go to hit people.
Oh, 100%. But you can get stunt people you literally, if you get stunt riders and in the main battle scenes, if the majority of people there are trained and are like, I know I might get hurt.
Still happens. Yeah. Like Deadpool 2, a woman died filming that, unfortunately, tragically, but unfortunately it still does happen. Even with all the safety protocols.
Yeah, even Harry Potter, one of Danny Radcliffe's main stunt double, he became like paralysed for life.
Yes,
and Danny Radcliffe funded a whole documentary about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it does happen.
Yeah, and that woman got shot on Alec Baldwin's film, Rust, which again hasn't happened since Brandon Lee, which is an incredible feat that it hasn't happened since 1993.
It's because they obviously changed how the guns work.
Exactly, how they operate and stuff like that. And I was hearing about. Have you seen Moonwalker, the Michael Jackson?
No, I haven't.
It's a weird kind of mishmash of music videos and stuff, kind of a movie, not really. But there's apparently behind the scenes, there was a moment where he shoots a Tommy gun and he just randomly shot that at the crew and scared them. And they were like, that wouldn't happen nowadays. That would never happen. This is that was pre-Crow. Post-Crow, it's a different world entirely. But overall, I think this is fun. Like a lot of big filmmakers like it. I think Nolan's a fan. Zack Snyder is definitely a fan of this, and you can see that. There's a lot of Snyderisms here, like the slow-mo and stuff. But I like the rough and ready fight choreography. Like, I've got a sword, I'm just going to fucking swing it at you. And,
there are points where I did find it funny, where it is a bit like, instead of being, here's my sword, I'm elegant, and slash, it's just like, hack. It's like hitting someone with a baseball bat, but it's a sword. And even Star Wars, on the odd occasion, especially when you play some of the games, which I love, Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, I love those games. But at points you're using a lightsaber like a bat. You're just like it's bouncing off people like that.
It doesn't go through them.
No, and a lot of these swords are like that, and I understand why.
And it's very much like, and I think we're so used to the kind of the Asian cinema version of like sword fighting,
especially because we literally also
today
we saw Legend of the Empire.
We saw one which actually does that, but also has a kind of a Western aesthetic to it as well. But I think we're quite used to the kind of balletic style of fighting that sometimes I don't mind them just hack it. Like there's a great line in where I give you the sword to heal, not to hack.
Yes.
You know, like it's some wonderful lines. All of Merlin's lines are great.
Everything Merlin says.
Anything about Merlin, like just watch it for Merlin.
I think all of Merlin and all the action scenes, either the jousting, hand-to-hand sword fighting, and also the bigger action scenes, all of that, which is the majority of the film, absolutely fantastic. It is just it's those quieter moments which get a little bit dull, but again, for the first hour or so, or hour and a half, it is like the quiet bits, then action, then quiet bits, then action, then Merlin, and it is just that last hour. There's not as much action. There's no Merlin, and it's just a lot of people being depressed. And it's like, I was here for sword and sorcery.
Now I'm depressed.
I was here for sword and sorcery. Now Arthur's old. I will also say Arthur's accent right at the very start absolutely cracked me up. It was the most like farmer boy sounding accent I've ever heard.
Right there, okay. I lost your sword, but here's Excalibur.
Essentially, it's not far removed from that, and it absolutely cracked me up. I loved that. So
I didn't. I remember watching it and going, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, I was when I first saw it, I was
like, first time I watched it.
So I saw it at the cinema because
you just assume that he's like English and grand, and but he's like actually it's like, oh, I'm just a yokel boy.
But as the film goes on, his accent gets more proper.
He gets the proper beard as well. He doesn't look as kind of scraggly and stuff.
The fact they did that with his makeup and stuff, of him being the same actor throughout the whole thing.
Like when he's old and grey, you're like, this is a different guy entirely.
He does look like you can see it, and they did the crow's feet really well. And, like again, the makeup department, the costume department,
bags under the eyes.
So much of this film is just so well done. I think it just could have maybe just had a cash injection, a little bit of extra money,
probably
just towards that end bit, just to tweak. Again, it's literally just like a 25-minute proper lull. But again, it was the end of the day for Forbidden World. It's the fourth film we watched.
Yes.
We've been in the cinema for a total of about 10 or so hours.
Yep.
In and out a little bit. But so part of that's probably the case. But I'm so glad I saw the cinema because when it was first happening with Merlin, I was like, is this meant to be funny? And everyone was laughing.
People are laughing.
Oh, I'm on board now. Because I didn't know this was a comedy. It's not a comedy.
It's not a comedy.
But it's definitely got a lot of humour in it.
And I think you need that. Otherwise, it would be very bland and stale and like, I'm a knight and I need to do the right thing for justice and all this. It would have been like a bit, so, which, same with like Lady Hawk. I think if you don't have Matthew Broderick's character.
And also Imperius.
Exactly, If you didn't have those characters, which he's basically, Imperius is basically Merlin in that. Like, he plays
That's a very good point.
He's a guy, he's a medicine man. He's the guiding light.
He's smarter than everyone, but also he's crazy, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, he plays that role. But Excalibur, I really, really like. And I think people should watch it. I think it is very much a very stylish film. Again, the substance you might be here and there on. If you like Arthurian lore, it's interesting.
It's definitely worth a watch.
Interesting comic book fact as well. Magneto and Xavier's favourite book is The Once and Future King, which is the King Arthur story. I think I want to say T.S. White wrote it.
Okay.
It's a real book. It's a real book. It's not a fictional book. It's a real book. Check it out. It's both their favourite book. I think they reference it in one of the films as well. But fun fact. There you go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything Dan said. Go watch Excalibur if you haven't. It's definitely worth a watch.
Do it.
Cool. Well, friends, thank you for tuning in. This is the end of day one of Forbidden World Film Festival. Again, make sure to check out the feed of Spider and the Secret Balls and Genuine Chit Chat on YouTube for the video versions of this and the clips, and on all the podcast feeds of Spotify, Apple.
Let people know. Tell Forbidden Worlds. Look at this. Look at this good stuff.
Tell them how much you've been enjoying all our reviews of pretty much all the films over this.
Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us?
Please tell us. And
tell us.
Last year we did basically the same thing as well with Forbidden Worlds when it was the Jawsploitation, a lot of watery stuff, and Galen Heard. So make sure you check
tell
that
Mike
out as well.
that he's wrong. Tell me that
there's a lot of hot takes that come out, mainly me, that come out of this. And check out all the clips and stuff on social media: TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. They're all the main places you can catch that. But friends, thank you so much as always, and we'll speak to you very soon with day 2 of Forbidden Worlds Film Festival 2026.
Yeah.